Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel and click that notifications button and get a new notification whenever a new video is uploaded. I've just uploaded another video. Please check it out. It discusses Josh Warrington and what went wrong for him against Mauricio Lara. It's a technical and tactical breakdown, and we also talk about what he would have to do if he was to have any chance in a rematch, but also why Mauricio Lara is stylistically all wrong for him, and the things he could learn from the likes. This is Josh, from the likes of Ricky Hatton, James Toney, and Tony Bellew in terms of, in terms of technical sort of lessons and approaches he could use. So please check that video out. I look forward to everybody's feedback and everyone else's views as always. Let's talk about Kiko Martinez and his fight against Zelfa Barrett, and since we're along the lines of what guys could learn from each other, let's talk about what Anthony Yarde could learn from Kiko Martinez. Okay, we'll get to that. This is obviously, Anthony Yarde was the discussion that Hatman first sort of gave a shout out to the channel about. It was that video. I'll bring that video back and put it into the description box of this particular video, so you guys can. I'll put Hatman's video in as well, a link to that, where he discusses his views too. So you can, for those that are interested in a bit of a backstory, you could look at that, and then we'll talk about Anthony Yarde and what he could learn from this. In terms of this particular fight, though, just the two of these guys, I felt Kiko Martinez won the fight. I felt he won the fight by a round or two. The majority of people that had it for Zelfa Barrett seemed to give him the 12th. I gave the 12th to Martinez. I thought Zelfa won 9, 10, and 11. One of the middle rounds as well. I think it was round 6. I think he won. And round 1 maybe. And then the other 7 I gave to Martinez. Early in the fight, they were definitely to Martinez. I thought he won the fight 7-5, but it was a close fight. Zelfa Barrett, to be honest with you, I think felt that Kiko Martinez won the fight too. You have to remember, Zelfa Barrett is a home fighter. And at the end of the fight, Kiko is celebrating like he's won. Zelfa wasn't. And when they called the scorecard of 118-111, Zelfa pulls a face and looks to his corner as if to say, like, what's that score all about? He wasn't happy. He felt as though he was hard done by. Now, if you're the hometown fighter and the promoted fighter, and you feel as though you won the fight, if you're the home fighter rather than hometown, sorry, but if you're the home fighter, the promoted fighter, and you feel like you won the fight, and you hear 118-111, you're thinking, yeah, they give me a touch with a nice scorecard. You're not going to sit there screw facing and looking at your corner thinking, what's that all about? So to me, that's quite clear. You know, he felt that Kiko won the fight too. But that's by the by. Let's talk about some of the errors that Zelfa Barrett made and some of the things he then adjusted to do that helped him come back into the fight, but also what Yarde could learn from Martinez. So with regards to Zelfa Barrett, he had to hold his feet more. Hold your back foot more, give him something to think about so he doesn't have this perpetual motion coming forward constantly. You want to give him pause for thought because he can run forward faster than you can run backwards. So if you're constantly on the back foot, almost in a state of panic, and you're just flicking out a jab with nothing really on it, Martinez is looking at it like an obstacle, something that he trains for every single day. He's up against taller fighters throughout his entire career. Bypassing a single jab, even a double jab, to be able to get off his power shots, that's bread and butter for the guy. That's how he's gotten to where he's gotten to. So what you need to be doing if you're Zelfa Barrett is changing that dynamic of movement. Yes, sometimes move backwards, sometimes don't though. Sometimes put your foot, hold your foot, hold your position and throw a power shot. And he did start to do that towards the end of the fight. And he did give him something to think about. Now, also, when you're coming out, because as he was rotating, you could see Martinez was brilliant at cutting off the ring. He'd take a little step diagonally, constantly in range. As he's taking that step diagonally, he's throwing a wide hook too, just for good measure, just to land it into the ribs of Barrett. And he's punishing him every time he's trying to rotate. Barrett's got to make that a little bit more unpredictable. Blind him with a shot before you choose to rotate outwards. Before you're going to cut that corner, blind him with the jab. You know, sometimes rotate the other way. Rather than take a step back or diagonal step to the side, take a step forward, surprise him, land 1 or 2 shots, then come out diagonally. You don't have to go all the way back to the ropes or the corner where you've got no other option but to cut across and then move across. You want to be more unpredictable. You want Kiko to be thinking, damn man, if I keep moving forward at this pace, I could walk onto a big shot. So I've got to be careful. Now, Kiko is very, very good at bypassing that first shot, like we said, and we'll get onto that in a second. But one of the things that you'd have to say about Kiko is that when that... No, in fact, let's talk about how he does this. So one of the things he does, he'll come in off a crouch, in a crouch, and when he does, when he moves in a crouch. So his footsteps as he's moving across, he's quite low. So he's small, and he makes himself smaller. But what he's ultimately doing is coiling. So as he moves and he's coiled, he's ready to throw a punch, and he's looking for your shot as his trigger to say, right, go. He's thrown a jab, hook, whatever it might be, bypass the shot, throw your own big shot. He's looking for it. Just like a sprinter waits for that gunshot so he can start to sprint. He's looking for your shot. Now, one thing he did very, very well, he would cover up the top part of his face. He does lean his head a little bit over his lead foot sometimes, which is dangerous because you put yourself in a position to be caught with an uppercut. But because he covers half his face when he's doing this, he'll only leave, he's not leaving much of the forehead to aim at. Because he's bobbing, he'll sometimes pull away. He's not an easy target necessarily to hit, especially with that first punch. With that first phase attack, he's quite good at evading. And he was very, very good at evading the hook from Barrett last night. So as he's in this position and he's leaning forward and that hook comes, he'll literally roll under the hook, and because he's already crouched, as he rolls, he'll then launch almost like a coiled snake, and he'll launch when you're least expecting it, so to speak. So when you're punching, you're most vulnerable against Kiko. But if you're not punching, he's more than happy to lead off too. So he's got variety with his attacks. And because of his constant foot pressure, he's putting you in a situation where you can be in a state of panic. You're having to move away very quickly. Now, as the fight wore on, he was still quite fresh up until the 8th round. When he started to slow down, Zelfa started to have a little bit more time to hold his feet and pick his shots more comfortably. He had to find a way, though, to do that without him tiring. Find a way to change that rhythm up and the direction of your movement to give him more to think about so that he doesn't know what's coming. Now, one of the things about Kiko, he does often fall short at the top level. It's those combination shots which can cause him problems because he'll dip and move and come under that first shot and throw his own. But if you can throw a combination, even if he slips that first one, he'll move off the shoulder. He'll just turn his shoulder, show you the shoulder and move back. Or he'll pull back and come under. But he's moving sometimes when he gets into that position where you're throwing a lot of shots. But when you're throwing a lot of shots rather than a single shot or a double shot, he'll eat shots. He'll walk into shots, especially because he's constantly got that concept of forward momentum. Now, if you land some big shots on him, you can dissuade him from coming forward, deter him, or seriously hurt him. And we've seen that in the past. He'll always be a handful. Carl Frampton said that he was urinating blood after fighting Kiko Martinez. I think it was in the second fight. They fought twice. He was saying he was urinating blood and that he's the only fighter ever to do that to him. So you know that the body attacks are vicious. But he caught up with him in the end. And this is the thing. The top-level fighters will catch up with him. You have to put your foot on the gas, though, and throw combinations, not constantly, but let go of your hands at times, even if it's single pot shots, which is more dangerous against Kiko. Every now and again, you have to surprise him by holding your feet. He was moving a little bit too consistently in a set pattern. Now, one of the things with Kiko as well, he takes a step across diagonally, like I said, to cut off the ring very well. You've got to blind him with shots, make it a little bit, throw that jab just to blind him before you take a step. You don't have to go all the way back to the ropes. You can cut across beforehand, take a step forward and hit him with something and then move across, pivot the other way. Do different things to not be easily readable. He doesn't have to see, his back's on the ropes. I know he's going to move that way now. I'll throw a wide hook and step across because I know that's what's going to happen. Be less predictable. But because he covers his face constantly and he's moving in that manner where he's coming forward and yet his feet are below him, he doesn't have a wide stance or anything like that. He's consistently moving forward in a manner that enables him to move quickly and to come under shots. He's always looking to come under shots and from being in a crouched position, launch himself. By doing that, what he does is essentially put you in a position where psychologically you can get fatigued. Now, Zelfa Barrett is the nephew of Pat Barrett, who is the trainer of Lyndon Arthur. And stylistically, there are a lot of similarities between the two guys. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, they're not the same fighter. Lyndon Arthur's jab is better than Zelfa's, to be honest with you. His right hand's more powerful too, I believe. Zelfa, I think, is more agile. I think he moves a little bit better. But if you were going to fight, say, Lyndon Arthur, Zelfa Barrett would be a great sparring partner. There are similarities there, for sure. And they have the same trainer, similar concepts. Well, Kiko had a lot of success. And Kiko was doing it in ways that Anthony Yarde is capable of executing. He's capable of moving around the ring with quick feet. He is the shorter guy, and he is able to have that agility, upper body to be able to come under shots. He needs to analyze the way that Kiko was springing into shots from low positions in combinations, varied combinations, whether it was to the body and head or head then body, to be able to get inside. Because pound for pound, Anthony Yarde hits harder than Kiko Martinez. So when Anthony Yarde's jumping in like that, it's going to be a lot more devastating than when Kiko Martinez is doing it. Now, Yarde is not as short in comparison as Kiko is to Zelfa Barrett. So coming under the shots might not be quite as easy as Kiko Martinez, but he still has the agility to come under shots, and he still is the shorter guy. And because he's longer than Martinez, closing that range should be easier than it is for Kiko, really. So if he can analyze the way Kiko applies foot pressure, the way Kiko will just try to evade that first phase attack to land a shot, the positioning of his feet and the coil of his body, Anthony Yarde, in my opinion, would be able in a rematch to learn something about how to get inside with big leading power shots against Lyndon Arthur. Now, I've also said, like we spoke about with Hatman, I'm a believer, a proponent that he should look to fight and develop a raiding style. So I'm not saying he should look to turn into Kiko Martinez, but there's no reason you can't also pick up that aspect of pressure fighting from a guy like Kiko, because Yarde has the physical and athletic attributes that would enable him to do all of these things. You see, a lot of people won't want to study guys that are not elite level names, right? But let me give you an analogy here. When you're talking about some of the best actors in the world, for me, the best actors are the guys that are capable, and girls, that are capable of playing any role. Think along the lines of Al Pacino, right? Al Pacino has played everything you can imagine, from a street gangster to a high-class gangster to an effeminate gay bank robber to an outcast who's a police officer to a blind man in a coming-of-age drama. He's played everything you can imagine. And he's brilliant at everything. He's played comedies, he's played everything. Romantic movies. But in order to get to that point, he would have studied other great actors. Now, to study other great actors, sometimes it's good to study specialists rather than all-round great actors. So if you want to study a comedian, let's say you're a dramatist, and you want to study a comedian, you're going to look at a comedian with great comedic timing, okay, who might develop certain facial expressions and deliver them in a certain way, his body language, things like that. You're going to learn that from looking at comedians. Whoever your comedian of choice might be, whether it's Eddie Murphy or David Chappelle or Joe Pesci, who actually has a background in comedy, Jim Carrey, whoever it might be that you find funny or the sort of role you're going for, you're going to analyze and study those comedians. Again, a villain. If you want to study a villain, you're going to look at some of the great villains of cinema. Now, that villain might not translate and play in a romantic comedy well enough. That might not be his style. He might be typecast, but he knows how to play a villain. Well, by the same token, when you're looking at a sportsman, an athlete, you don't always have to just analyze the great fighters. You can analyze the specialists. Kiko Martinez is a specialist pressure fighter who's a smaller man, who has not got the physical attributes of some of the elite level competitors or the skill set, and yet he's able to hang with them. How and why? What is he able to do that enables him to cause these problems to Zelfa Barrett? Because if you can marry that with your existing skill set and with a new raiding style that you can pick up on, well, now Lyndon Arthur's got a whole host of problems to deal with rather than just one style. So when it comes to pressure fighting, there's nothing wrong with looking at the great pressure fighters, but also looking at guys who are specialists. You want to learn how to jab. You don't just have to look at the famous jabbers like the Larry Holmeses and the Lennox Lewises and Muhammad Ali's. You can also learn from a guy like Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie Malignaggi was a 2-weight world champion without power. You know, Paulie had 3 knockouts in his first 4 fights. He broke his hand after that twice and had to have pins inserted in his hand, and he lost his right hand. And this is a guy that went on to compete at the highest level in 2 weight categories with just a jab and without having even physical brute strength. So it's not like he had other physical attributes that could carry him through. He just learned the jab, just the technical element of the sport. Well, that's a guy you could learn a lot from. Do you see what I'm saying? So There's nothing wrong with a guy like Anthony Yarde looking at a guy like Kiko Martinez, seeing, right, I'm in it because I'm so broad and stocky. I'm not short, he's 6 foot. I'm not short, but at the weight I'm operating at, I'm not tall either. So I will be the shorter man. So what works for this guy who's a shorter man in terms of pressure fighting that enables him to punch well above his station? And I'm not talking about power punching, because pound for pound, Yarde is the bigger power puncher. And that's why I think, like I said, if Yarde is able to get inside and lead with these power shots, he'll cause more damage than Kiko does. What I mean is that he's able to punch above his ability. He's got a weird body, Kiko Martinez, in the sense that he's very broad in the midriff without being very broad in the shoulders. It's quite an unusual physique, and he's short, and his arms aren't particularly long. So it's not like this guy's got these athletic attributes that make him really agile, and he can, he's not a force of nature in the way Mike Tyson was at heavyweight, say, whereby Mike Tyson's skill set translated very well against bigger, cumbersome guys at heavyweight. No. You're talking about a little guy like Kiko Martinez, who's not particularly agile, who's up against a very agile mover in Zelfa Barrett, and he's causing him a whole host of problems. So imagine someone as athletic as Anthony Yarde. If he can pick up some of those pointers, how much more effective he could be. So that's what I want to see Anthony Yarde look at and study. How to be able to shift his weight from back foot to front foot in a coiled manner, ready to spring, and work on evading that first phase attack to launch him with power shots. How to cut off the ring as well as Kiko did. Look at when to move across and what to do when you want to move across, the sort of punches you need to throw and what you need to do, rather than just following a guy around the ring, and start to try and implement that into your game in sparring. Let me know what you think, guys, about how the fight went with Kiko Martinez. In regards to the scorecards, by the way, I will say this. The scorecards we know were shocking. G-Man Boxing, brilliant channel. Check him out if you haven't already. Subscribe to his channel. G-Man was talking in his latest video, episode 52, where he was talking about Lara and Warrington. He was talking about how scoring used to work, way back in the day, where he was talking about newspaper decisions. And it gave great food for thought. In the sense that you would get ringside reporters, newspapers that would all give their views, and then you'd get a newspaper decision in boxing. To be honest with you, you've got to check this episode out. Really good from G-Man. But to be honest with you, I don't think that would work. I think it might make the situation worse, because we see now that networks are obviously often tied to newspapers. You've got like 5 or 6 media organizations that own pretty much every TV station, news channel, and newspaper in the world, right? Go and do your research into this, and then you can tell me about plurality of media and viewpoint, right? But regardless, the point is they're all interlinked. And because of that, you're going to have newspapers that have a conflict of interest. So, and I'm not saying G-Man suggested we should do that today, but I'm just sort of building on from that and saying I don't think it would work today because of that. We've heard multiple media outlets, sort of YouTube channels. We've heard the Boxing Voice talk about it. We know what happened with Coogan too. They've been left out of being able to attend big fights or interviews because the promoters didn't like questions they asked. Well, the promoters are intrinsically linked now to networks. So you've got to be careful about that. Personally, what I would like to see, which I guess it would change the entire history of boxing. So I guess a lot of people will not be for this. Personally, I'd like to see the concept of ring generalship relegated in importance, because it's far too subjective. What does it even mean? Who's the general in the ring? Who cares about that? If you're dictating how the fight wants to go, how you want the fight to go, but I'm the one punching you in the mouth more often, then does it really matter that you're the ring general? If I throw 10 punches and I only land 4 of them on you, and you throw 2 punches and you land them both, and they're equally as hard, all 6 punches are as hard as each other, neither of us hurt the other one. Well, I only landed 40% of my punches. Well done, great defense. You landed 100% of your punches. Yeah, but you hit me twice, I hit you 4 times. Let's multiply that over 12 rounds. Who wins the fight? It should be the guy who's landing the punches. So I don't believe in this thing. I've heard people talk about giving rounds to guys for their defense. No. For your defense, if you made me miss and you made me pay, then for sure. But you've got to make me pay. It's not just about missing. I don't believe in that. So that's my personal view. You've got to start looking at it as in shots being landed. And then that gets overridden perhaps by damage caused. If damage isn't caused in an obvious manner where a guy's been hurt, then I would look at volume. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, we've got to find ways to make it more structured as how to score a fight without eradicating subjectivity completely. But for me, I'd want to see the concept of ring generalship eradicated. Let me know what you think about scoring in general and how they can improve it. What you thought of the Kiko Martinez Zelfa Barrett fight, and what you think about Anthony Yarde. Could he learn anything? Like I said, Zelfa Barrett, nephew of Pat Barrett, trainer of Lyndon Arthur. Similarities between the two fighters. They're not identical. They're different for sure. I think Barrett's jab's definitely... Arthur's jab is better. His right hand's more powerful, I believe. I think Zelfa Barrett's a better mover. They're both agile upper body. If you're fighting one or the other makes a great sparring partner. So there are similarities there. Could Yarde look at a guy like Kiko Martinez? Or are you going to say, you know what, Chris, I think you should focus on looking at other elite level pressure fighters and not worry about specialists that haven't reached that level? Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, guys. Chat to you soon, and God bless.